Hi, I'm Andrew Berman with the Mortgage News Network. We're here in San Diego at the Mortgage Bankers Association of America's annual convention. Having a great conference, and Mike Middleman, who's Vice President over at Freedom Mortgage, just sat down with us. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to meet with us.
No problem. Glad to be here.
So listen, Mike, we're having a little bit of a conversation about this. I want to bring this back on camera. The reality is that the mortgage industry is just getting old. You know, it's a sad state of affairs, but if we look at where the average loan officer is 54 years old, I mean, 54 years old, where something's going on, where it's like the younger generation, the call it what it is, the millennials, but basically the 20-somethings, they're not excited about this business, or it seems. So what's going on out there? What's creating this block?
Well, I guess I would start answering that question by saying, you know, we're just disconnected from the entire business itself. When you say somebody that's a millennial, generally I guess that's in that 18 to 35 age range, and I don't really...
I hate buzzwords like that.
I don't really love the millennial kind of talk, because when I think about new to the industry, this is something that we have to have every year, regardless of what generation we're really talking about.
I agree, totally. Yeah.
So, I mean, when we talk about that disconnection between younger folks and those that are in the industry, with the average loan officer age of 54 years old, as you were alluding to before, I just try to approach this answer like, how can we make that connection and narrow that gap between this 54-year-old and, say, somebody that's graduating from college? And when I think to answer your question specifically as to, you know, what caused this general disconnection, I'd say, you know, thinking back to 2005, 2006, while I was still in college, a lot of people were getting into mortgage. Everybody that I talk to on a regular basis, oh, I'm this loan officer, I'm making so much, I charge these points, and you know, I make all this money, and it's great, things are good. And then you get to 2008, there's this crisis, and things kind of blew up, and then things came off the map. And in 2007, leading into the crisis, you're talking about the broker community being close to 50% of the entire mortgage market, yeah. Right? In terms of people that are out there, loan officers, you know, doing their stuff, right? And after that broker community shrank from 2008 into 2009, I think that disconnection between the mainstream LO, who's, you know, in their late teens, early 20s, later 20s, they had to exit. They had to exit the business,
right?
And that led companies towards investing in people that just knew what they were knew what they were doing, have been in the business for a while, could sustain the relationships, can sustain you know, themselves from a capital, you know, the amount of money they're making, you know, right. Get through the crisis and not have to leave and go into a different kind of job, a new kind of opportunity, which I think is what really happened. And from that, you don't have that constant flow thereafter of, okay, well, this generation is going to go after the next generation or the next year, right? And you have this huge gap of mortgage companies not growing up until 2012, right? So you have this 4-year gap that we're just really starting to recover from now.
Yep.
And you notice in the statistics, the average loan officer age is now 54. We need to kind of start from scratch and see how can we get this next generation in.
Interesting, and so it's almost like, you know, if we get the process started now and we address it now, we potentially won't have the gap in the future. So if we say, all right, we're missing that gap, and instead of actually looking at it from a millennial standpoint to say, what do we need to do to keep young people coming into this business and excited about it and make it a part of our corporate culture, rather than just a one-off thing to try to get people in the business, that we would be better positioned in the future.
Right, my view is it's got to be a constant flow. It's got to be year after year. Right. Millennials that are coming out of college, they don't want to talk to some guy that's in their 40s, 50s, or 60s about what it's like to be in the mortgage industry. They want to talk to somebody that's living it today, right, and see the potential for growth in the future, right? So if I'm coming out of college, I want to talk to somebody that's maybe been in it for 1 or 2 years, and then have them tell me stories about the guys that they looked up to and that they spoke to when they were in college, right? And then where those guys are at now, so they could see that potential growth for them in the future.
So listen, I got to ask you, you know, specific strategies. What I want to know, Because now I want to know what you guys are doing, because obviously Freedom's a huge player in many different channels. I'd love to know what you guys are doing to bring the younger people into the business. And I want to know, what do you feel that smaller mortgage companies, whether these are mortgage brokers that are your wholesale clients or correspondent lenders that have relationships with you guys, what can they do if they don't have the power of Freedom Mortgage behind them?
Well, I'd say the latter question is a little difficult to answer because
Sure.
it's a time commitment.
Yeah.
You have to specifically design a strategy and an executable strategy around going after marketing, teaching these younger folks the mortgage industry. And the easier answer to that question is, I think that the brokers need to decide whether they want to be in this for the long haul and create those succession plans. And the second stage is, maybe they want to rely on some of the larger mortgage companies like us to start training these guys and then take them on the second swing so they can start bringing people in at the age of maybe 25 or 26 years old after they have 3 or 4 years at a larger company to get experience from. I mean, I think that might be an easier answer for them rather than trying to go out and target millennials that are coming out of college, because
Right.
mostly, kids coming out of school, they don't want to be in the same career or in specific the same job for too much of an extended period of time. They want to get experience so they can then leverage that experience and make the next step.
Right.
So as a broker, if I'm going to bring somebody in and expect them to stay for a long time, it may not end up being that way, and they may end up discouraging themselves from doing it in the future if they don't have that mindset going in and that understanding of what the millennial mindset is.
Well, which leads me to a big problem that I know when I've had mortgage companies. I know that the problem for especially smaller guys is that how much do we spend on training? Knowing that if we train them and they're great, they're going to leave here and go to another company.
Right, and it's not just training, right? So training's a part of it.
Yeah.
You're going to have to go out, and it's an effort to get out and recruit, go to the right schools, go to the right places, say the right thing, appeal to them. There's a bet right there that you might be sending people out to just talk to all these guys and can't really bring them in, right? Then it comes to onboarding, training, the licensing fees that it costs. There's a lot of investment that goes into a millennial and a new generation kind of guy or lady that you may not get that ROI off of them if they don't stay X period of time. For you, that could be 2, 3, or 4 years before you start realizing that ROI. And that's a long time, and that's an investment. That's a big investment for a smaller broker shop or correspondent to really take on.
So let's go to some specific things that you guys are doing for you.
Sure.
Because, there's no question about it. You're, like I said, you're big in a lot of different channels. I know you've recently made an announcement. Talk about your program specifically to bring the younger generation into this business.
Right, so we decided back in January to start this program that we're calling our First Flyer program. So
First Flyer, okay.
First Flyer, they're going to take their first flight with us. Our logo, as you can see on the business card, is an eagle. That's an eagle that's in flight already, and we want to bring people up to that point. That's kind of the premise between this First Flyer program, so they can then become a high flyer for us. That's our approach to the program. So it's actually a fairly complex kind of program. I was in a similar program out of school, working at a Big Four accounting firm, and I noticed all of the complexities that went into it, from bringing people on and all the small things that people really gave the program executives or administrators a really hard time about for things that didn't work, but there was a lot that did work. So I tried to take that experience and blend that into something that could work out well for somebody coming out of college and into the mortgage world.
Right.
And I think that in a lot of ways we look at this, especially as for loan officers in particular, this SAFE exam, the exam that you need to take in order to get your loan officer license and to be able to get up and sell, as people look at it as a potential barrier. And I did back in January 1st, but this has really become the cornerstone of our program, using this test, the SAFE exam, as a way to bring people in and force ourselves to learn the mortgage business. And it's a way for them to learn it and prove to us that they're willing to put the time in to go ahead and learn it in somewhat short period of time. So our program is really based around the first few months. This is a year-long program. The first 4 months around the SAFE Act test, right? And we try and, so within this year-long program, we have this first 4 months around the test and building relationships with each other through different projects and events. We have some of our first flyers, they go out bowling the first week, they go out go-karting, they do something, there's always something going on. While there's a lot of rigor around studying for the test and doing these other projects as well, but we don't actually put them in a role for about 6 weeks.
Okay.
And that's getting over the hump of the test, and then 2 weeks of technical training, how to use the processes and all of our systems and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the early goings of the program. If someone were to come on, right? And what else? The other things that we try to do is we're trying to appeal to make things more easily, so they can easily assimilate with the program. Somebody coming out of college. So we have a credit-based system. So this credit system is similar to the system that they have in college. They say, well, I'm going to go to college for 4 years and I need X number of credits. It means I got to do this, and this to graduate. Well, I give them a credit-based system, right? I say you need 100 credits to graduate. Within that credit-based system, they'll have X number of credits to pass a SAFE Act test, right? So that's part of it. You don't graduate from the program unless if you get those SAFE Act credits, right? They get credits for going to the events. So they just, went to a go-karting event and I got a credit for it. I did a project and I won the project. They'll go into different groups and face off against each other, right? And you'll get participation point credits, and then you'll get credits for presenting on the best project, right? So
are you keeping score? Does everyone know?
There's a whole
everyone knows
tracking
everyone's
system.
score. So
it's not really. It's more or less you need X number to graduate, and you can do whatever you need to do to build your way up to getting to that 100 credit to the 100 credits to graduate. And we always have soft skills, kinds of lunch and learns, different things going on. So there's always something involved because we don't want to just give them a task and say, hey, we want you to do this task. We know that's going to be boring for them. We want them to see a lot of things. We have them rotate into different business segments through operations, licensing, analytics. We have separate program just for IT. But the core of this program, no matter where you end up, you start all together for the first 6 weeks going through this rigor of projects, training, and taking the exam, and up until you get to the point where you can actually go on rotations and into the areas that will boost you up to where you potentially can be upon graduation. So really the idea is to give them the tools that they need to succeed, but then give them an opportunity to go ahead and have that exposure to show I can do this stuff. I can perform. I can be a loan officer. I can be a processor. I can be an IT guy, whatever it is, and then you graduate into that position once you've proven it to yourself and you've proven it to us.
So they get exposure to all these different areas, and there's almost somewhat of like a gamification, going on here on a personal level, where I'm trying to just get to that 100 points.
Yeah, 100 credits, right.
That's 100 credits, great. Mike, thank you for taking the time to sit down with us. We really appreciate it. I'm Andrew Berman from the Mortgage News Network. Stay classy, San Diego.
This is Mortgage News Network.